Well, looky here, a new listener. Hey, this ain't your little sister's radio station.
From all of us at CPR Worldwide Media to all of you, Merry Christmas. Hey, who put eggnog in my eggnog?
We'll have somebody from Alaska be listening in because I had a really good conversation with a young man today, and he's all fired up and ready to rock and roll and help us get this thing passed. So, and I told him how to get on the website and how to listen to us tonight, so hopefully he will.
We all know that Santa's coming. We all know that Santa's coming. We all know that Santa's coming, and soon he'll be here. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy New Year.
All of us at CPR Worldwide Media would like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.
Why do cities shine so bright? It's the glow of opportunities, of ideas bouncing off one another, of countless people, every one of us, striving to succeed. Right now, in cities everywhere, ideas are being born. New thinking that will put us in awe of what people are capable of. That's what lights cities up. And helping people and their ideas to burn even brighter, so that communities, businesses, and you and I can grow. What if a bank made that its job? For more than 200 years, Citi's job has been to help empower people and business. Now, around the world, it's wherever people gather, wherever ideas come alive. It's wherever you are. The world's city.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
That's insane. These guys are morons!
I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. Your host will be Charles Kacprowicz, Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and Countermand Amendment. Our special legislator guests will be discussing important issues in their states that relate to federal encroachment on states' rights. The nonpartisan Article 5 single-issue Countermand Amendment can remedy many states' issues peacefully without the consent of Congress, the courts, or the executive branch. We will reclaim our constitutional republic soon. The nonpartisan Countermand Amendment is the missing piece of the Article 5 puzzle. Our nation is coming apart at the seams, so we are countermanding.
Those who hammer their guns into plows will plow for those who do not. Thomas Jefferson said that. And here's something that John Adams said. Those who trade liberty for security have neither. I want you to think about that, folks. Those who trade liberty for security have neither. A Major William Pierce, he was a delegate to the convention for Georgia, from Georgia, said the following about George Wythe, one of the most learned legal characters of the present age. He is remarked for his exemplary life and universally esteemed for his good principles. No man, it is said, understands the history of government better than Mr. Wythe, nor anyone who understands the fluctuating conditions to which all societies are liable better than he does. He is a neat and pleasing speaker and a most correct and able writer. Good evening, folks. My name is Charles Kacprowicz. I am the National Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Welcome to the State Legislators Roundtable. The reason I quoted this information about the delegate and founder George Wythe is because before the convention started, there was a very serious problem that had to be resolved. It was centered in the idea of sovereignty. And before the deliberations began by the delegates at the convention, Mr. Wythe was asked to put a committee together for the purpose of resolving the question as to how voting would take place at the convention. The larger states wanted voting by population. The smaller states said, no, we want one vote per state. Well, the larger states lost, the smaller states won, and the convention was conducted as a republic, with each state having an equal vote, regardless of, mute your phone, please, regardless of the number of people in that delegation. Now, I want to, again, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome, folks, to this State Legislators Roundtable. Roundtable discussions with state legislators and community leaders center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights and how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. This is not a gotcha forum. We are not here to back our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of issues important to our guests and their states. Subjects can include taxation, criminal law, energy policy, healthcare, social issues, federal land grabs, court decisions, education, executive orders, unfunded liabilities, EPA, BLM, IRS, and much more. You will learn how to protect your enumerated rights in the Constitution and how the states and their citizens can identify, define, and protect their unenumerated rights in the 9th and 10th Amendments peacefully and permanently. Roundtable members tonight are Sandy Toth, our Executive Coordinator and Georgia State Director, Mike Coons, our National Director and Alaska State Director, and Kelly Gordon, our National Coordinator and Texas State Director and Producer. We now have 15 sponsored states for the non-partisan amendment, Countermand Amendment. We could have a total of 20 in a very short period of time. We have had the honor of meeting many of the country's leading legislators on this State Legislators Roundtable. And I do see these state legislators more as statesmen than I do politicians. They are really trying to find solutions for us folks, for their states as well as for the nation. The State Legislators Roundtable has been growing. I can't give you an exact number, but I would suppose that every week we are reaching well over 120,000 people. To learn more about the Countermand Amendment, go to countermands.us. That's countermands.us. Also, call your friends, relatives, and associates. Tell them to tune in to this show at cprworldwidemedia.com/live-radio. They will also be able to participate in our online chat and a call-in. The call-in number is 956-217-0031. You can make comments on the air and also on the chat. Now, tonight we have a special guest in our second hour, which is John Bering from Louisiana, and I'm looking forward to that interview. But for right now, we're going to be talking about some things that are very important and current, and matters that we need to be concerned about as far as what is happening to our nation and to our Constitution. In the state of North Carolina, I'm going to read to you an article that appeared in Asheville Citizens Times on December 7th of this year. Raleigh, North Carolina State Board of Education this week joined a building national debate over whether high school students should be taught that America is an exceptional nation despite its faults, or whether the country's history should be explained more objectively. That is the question that we're proposing. School board members heard pros and cons of changes to a high history test for advanced students. The Advanced Placement U.S. History Test, designed by the College Board, a New York City nonprofit, allows students to earn college credits. The school board's discussion came as conservative groups around the country pressure state and local education officials to reject the revamped test that translated into lessons being taught beginning this fall. North Carolina native and retired history teacher Larry Krieger said the test promotes a message that America is as good and as bad as any other nation around the world, rather than promoting Americans and the country they found it as unique and exceptional. Now, Mr. Krieger is fighting a battle for us, folks. And as we go into this program tonight, think about this. The Countermand Amendment really can address some of these issues because of the funding arrangements that the federal government has with local school boards that promote things like Common Core. I received a video recently, and in the video was a homeschool mom who had been explaining some of the things that were being taught in a Farmville, North Carolina high school, or Farmersville, I think it was, North Carolina high school. And they talk about Muhammad as a great teacher. They talk about Muhammad as one who had made certain revelations, and really, though he wasn't educated, he was very learned. Very complimentary. Now, what in the world is that doing in our textbooks? And there are probably a half a dozen items in this one section that she was trying to catch our attention with, to recognize that they're trying to change our culture. That's what this Islamic movement is all about, coming into America. Just like it is doing it in the Scandinavian countries and in Europe, their strategy is to come in and to make the value system of that culture adopt and eventually be surrender to their supposedly superior religious and ideological and political system. So we are in a battle for the lives, the souls, and the minds of men, like never ever before. In China, in October, in One News Now, reported that 300 uniformed officials blocked all entrances in a village near Wenzhou City in China and forcibly removed a cross from a local church. Now, how dangerous is a cross? Is a cross really dangerous, folks? For several months, officials have removed crosses throughout the city in a cross demolition campaign. According to Su-Young Kim of International Christian Concern, the government claims to only be removing illegal crosses. How can a cross be illegal? What's wrong with a cross? That's the symbol of the death of our Savior, Jesus Christ. This is Christmas. This is a time when we celebrate the birth of Christ. And it's a time when the death of Christ is the focus of his life, and we celebrate that on Easter. And the idea is that on that cross, he is reported in the Bible, and I believe this, to have paid the penalty for the sins we owe the Father. And we couldn't pay the Father, so the Father sent his Son to do what we couldn't do ourselves, and the slate is now clean, because of the forgiving power of Jesus Christ and the shedding of his blood. Now, why is it that the cross is illegal in this nation? But a church cross is not against any building code. Kim also stated that although national law forbids the removal of illegal construction at night, police removed these latest crosses at 3:30 in the morning. This is incredible what's going on in our culture. How about this one? Churches forced to fund abortions. In October, the California Department of Managed Health Care reclassified abortion as a basic health service under the Affordable Care Act. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but when you kill my child in the womb, that's not a health service. That's my heritage. And that's exactly what the man ought to be thinking before he gives his tacit consent to seeing that his mother, the mother of his child, destroy that child. At any rate, they reclassified abortion as a basic health service under the Affordable Care Act, requiring all insurance plans in the state to begin covering surgical abortions, including churches and religious nonprofit organizations statewide. This is happening right now. As far as the abortion is concerned, I'm probably the oldest member of the pro-life community. And I go back to January 22nd, 1973. I have pictures of dead babies in bags and the terrible things that have happened to our children because these in-your-face feminists said that that was a piece of tissue that can be destroyed at the will of the mother. This is not a free ride for these women. They will be held accountable, and their accountability is going to be a severe judgment. Well, here's one more. Schools drop religious holidays. The Board of Education in Montgomery County, Maryland, voted last month to remove any mention of religious holidays on next year's school calendar. Why is that? They want to get rid of Christ. And they want to get rid of our Christian heritage. And that's why the Countermand Amendment needs to be addressed. We need the Countermand Amendment now more than we can imagine. And we need the state legislatures to be in a position where they can exercise a countermand and cause a rescission of burdensome laws and rules and regulations, whether that be the IRS or the Congress or the courts, that 30 states, 60% of the states reject with the countermand. We need that today because right now we're losing our culture. We are losing it every day. And for those of you who do not understand the difference between federal law and state law, and there is a great misconception here. I am a states' rights guy, but there are some issues that are not just states' rights guys for state rights. And that is, how about right to life? Do you have a right to live? Or would it be appropriate under state rights to have your state decide that your age group is going to be eliminated? Or your physical condition is no longer to be tolerated? How would you like to be in a state that has its laws set up so that you can have your life taken? That's And that's why we have a federal constitution that guarantees that you can't have your life taken without due process of law. So that if any state had made an alternate decision, they would not be controlling, because that's an inalienable right. You take someone's right away and it's over with. How about if a state decided that they wanted to institute slavery again? Would that be an appropriate state's right? I don't think so. I think that that's a federal mandate to protect our inalienable rights. So I am not against the federal government. I am not against the proper role of the federal authorities. I am against their encroachment on states' rights and our civil liberties that are literally destroying our culture and our individual characteristics that each state has or republic has in America. Now here's something else to think about, and this one startles me to no end. I'll read this. This is from the Federal Election Commission. This was provided to me by one of our directors on one of our recent directors' meetings. And this is startling. A summary. The Commission announces its disposition of a petition for rulemaking filed on August 28, 2014. That's just a few months ago, folks. By National Convention PBC. The petition asks the Commission to amend the 11 CFR to revise the definition of federal office to include delegates to a constitutional convention. Now, did you hear what I just said? You know, we are involved with a terrible battle for advancing the Countermand Amendment under the Article 5 convention process through state legislatures, in which we are arguing that delegates are ambassadors of their legislatures, not free agents. So therefore, the legislatures can bind them and give them a pre-approved text for the amendment that the legislature wants, rather than let them go and become independent agents deliberating as whatever they want. So here already, because of this flawed thinking as to who the delegates are under Article 5, already the Federal Election Committee their little noses in this thing to redefine a delegate. Now, no matter what they do, the state legislatures must understand that they are the sovereign body under Article 5. And they have the control over how to propose amendments at a convention. Now, they aren't equivalent, those delegates who go to that Article 5 convention, to the founders. That's a totally different situation, because they were commissioned to create a new document and to create a new government, out of which we get Article 5 for proposing amendments. So now the sovereign authority of those legislatures basically are with responsibility to define how the convention is to be convened. I believe that's one of the reasons why the founders left Article 5 so vague and without any clear definitions other than proposing amendments. They wanted future state legislatures to decide how to use their sovereign authority, not precedents in the past, not legalese, not convention experience, not congressional statutes or Supreme Court rulings, but sovereignty. When you have sovereignty in state legislatures under Article 5 for proposing amendments, it trumps all of that. All of that is literally nonsense, because the legislatures decide what they're going to do at a convention. So here we have the Federal Election Commission wanting to define a delegate so that they can have some control over his deliberations at a convention, one, taking it out of the hands of the state legislatures, and two, placing a type of control over the delegates that has never been dreamed of before. But it's here. And the only way we can do this, folks, that is to counter these people and to stop this onslaught against our civil liberties, states' rights, against all of the freedoms that we have cherished and have fought for so many generations, the only way we can do it is for state legislatures not to surrender their sovereign authority in Article 5 and to see themselves as the deliberative body, not the delegates who go to the convention, so that the legislature decides the text for the amendment, pre-approves it before it goes to the convention, and also they decide how the delegates will behave through a delegate resolution, binding those delegates to a contract that says you are now an ambassador of ours, and you agree to it, we agree to it, now we're under contract, and you are obligated to perform in such and such a way, including to vote on this particular amendment as written. So we have to stop this federal election nonsense. Yes, it didn't go through. It was not passed, or at least it didn't move forward as the proponents had hoped. But it's there. They're working on it. That's the way they operate. These lefties, they wind up always trying to take a little bit at a time until all of a sudden it's like that frog who goes into that pot of water and it's nice and cool, and then someone turns the heat up and he doesn't notice, and a little hotter and a little hotter and a little warmer, and all of a sudden he boils to death. He never jumps out because he became accustomed to each stage along the way to where his temperature was adjusting. Well, that's what we are. We have allowed everything that has happened to us, including abortions. 50 million babies have been murdered. That's the kind of nonsense that we have to stop. Only the Countermand Amendment with state legislatures can do it. And we can do it safely because of the Delegate Resolution. Now, if you would like to call in and to discuss any of these matters with us or ask any question, call 956-217-0031. That's 956-217-0031. If you want to join us on our chat, go to Facebook /groups, GROUPS /GPR Worldwide Media. We would be glad to communicate with you directly. Now, anyone, Mike, did you want to add anything to this?
We just got just a few minutes. I just saw on latest news on Fox News that court rules against environmentalists seeking EPA regulations for lead bullets. Obviously, this isn't one of those ones where the environmentalists got regulations done in backdoor, fortunately. And what's really surprising is that this is out of the U.S. District Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. One of the judges was appointed by President Clinton, and the other two were appointed by President Obama. Wow. And what it says is this is somewhat surprising from the standpoint, because it says that a federal appeals court has ruled against environmentalists who are trying to force the EPA to regulate spent lead bullets and lead shot used in hunting and sporting sports. Quote, this is from the judge, given that bullets and shot cannot be spent, can become spent only if they are first contained in a cartridge or shell and then fired from a weapon, the environmentalist groups have identified in no way in which EPA could regulate spent bullets and shot without also regulating cartridges and shells, precisely what the law prohibits.
Let me stop you for a minute. We got 30 seconds, and I got to go to break. But I will come right back and get you back on. Folks, we have to go to a break now. We want you to hold tight, stay with us. We've got more to talk about, plus our special guest, John Bering, at the top of the hour. And remember to go to countermands.us to learn more about us. But right now, we need to hear from our CPR sponsors and station identification.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
When I'm training, I always listen to music. For the gym, it's hip-hop. For cross-country, classical. And for jumps, I need something special. So I use my City Thank You Visa card for music downloads and earn 2 times the points. Plus, a little extra inspiration.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
The City Thank You Preferred Visa card. Earn 2 times the points on entertainment and dining out with no annual fee. City, with you every step of the way.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
In time. These guys are morons!
I like it a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here. We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. Somebody is on that. Somebody is hitting the keyboard.
I'm sorry.
Welcome back. Welcome back, folks. This is Charles Kacprowicz again, the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. This is the State Legislators Roundtable, and we're going to continue our discussion right now with Mr. Mike Coons, our National Director. But before we do, I want to remind you to go to have this broadcast shared with others. Go send them to cprworldwidemedia.com/live-radio. Also, you can go to countermands.us and learn more about the Countermand Amendment, why it's working, why so many states are receiving the amendment well, and how it is that this amendment can actually restore our constitutional republic through state legislatures. Finally, on the website, countermands.us, you can also participate in sponsoring books to state legislatures around the nation. There are 7,500 state legislators. If you make a donation, for every $25, $20 for the book and $5 for the shipping and handling, we will send a book to a legislator in your state or a surrounding state, and you will have part in helping us get this initiative into the hands with the documents that the legislators need in short fashion. We need to get those books into their hands by the end of January. And the reason being is because we are anticipating 34 sponsored states by this legislative session, which will end sometime around the 3rd or 4th month of next year. Now, finally, the book's name is Countermand Amendment, the missing piece in the Article 5 puzzle. And if you wanted your own personal copy, don't use the donate button. That's just for the legislators. But on the left, there's another button. Make your payment there or your donation there, and it will be a personal autographed copy that you can use for your own library. I do believe that this is going to be an historical book. I've already been asked to have it produced in leather binding, and we will, but the one that you'll be ordering will be on a paperback. Now, Mr. Coons, why don't you tell us what you had in mind and just continue to share with us some of those thoughts that we interrupted you with a little while ago.
Well, that was pretty much it. You can go to foxnews.com and read up on the article. Basically, the Toxic Substances Control Act that has been passed exempts cartridges and shells from regulation. This is just an ongoing, attack on Second Amendment, and of course they will tell us that they're not worried about hunters, but yet this is directly attacking hunters. So that's just what I really kind of wanted to toss in there. Charles, do you want to kind of go over some of those countermands that we could be looking at this point?
Why not? You go right ahead.
Folks, when you look at the Countermand Amendment, that's the whole purpose of the Countermand Amendment, is so that when 30 states or 60% of the states believe that a federal law, rule, regulation, executive order, treaty, judicial decision, excessive spending violates that is so egregious against their state, against their 10th Amendment, their 9th Amendment, their enumerated rights, that they can repeal it. And once that 30th state hits that mark, that law, rule, regulation is hereby repealed. Some of the things that could be easily done, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV, and I think 100 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean is a good start. But just for a friend of mine and I were talking the other day, and I was I just off the top of my head threw out some resolutions. First one, whereas the federal government passage the 1968 Gun Control Act has violated this state's individual Second Amendment rights by regulating this enumerated right, whereas the history of enforcement of the 1968 Gun Control Act by the U.S. Attorney Generals in conjunction with local and state law enforcement has not been enforced consistently, be it resolved that under Article 28, and this Countermand Amendment would be the 28th Amendment, Countermand Amendment, the state of Alaska nullifies and repeals is the key word, the 1968 Gun Control Act, all changes to the GCA, and all rules and regulations related thereof. Be it further resolved that other states take up this resolution to protect their citizens' Second Amendment rights and to thus upon the 30th state resolution, the 1968 GCA is hereby repealed. Then it kind of goes on a couple other resolves. It's more about housekeeping. The second one, this is near and dear to the state of Alaska, near and dear to the western states in particular, as well as the state of New Hampshire, who has 20% of their lands under federal control. Whereas the 1906 Antiquities Act has violated Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17, by taking lands from the several states without the consent of the states. Whereas the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act in 1953 impedes the state of Alaska's ability to drill on state waters for the economic benefit of all Alaskans as per the Alaska State Constitution. Whereas the locking up of lands from Anwar to Tongass Forest has denied the resource development of Alaska lands and the resources of oil, natural gas, minerals, fisheries, and logging, to name just a few. Whereas the Department of Interior has impacted land use to the point of Alaskan citizens' loss of life, specifically the denial of the Eisenbeck Road for rapid transport to Cold Harbor for medical evacuation. Be it resolved that under Article 28 Countermand Amendment, the state of Alaska hereby nullifies and repeals the 1906 Antiquities Act, the Outer Continental Shelf Act, and all executive orders which have denied Alaska lands under the Alaska Statehood Act. Be it further resolved that the other states take up this resolution to regain all lands that have been taken by the federal government as per the above and any other acts or executive orders that have negatively impacted their lands and use of those lands for their people and state's economic benefit. That one right there, folks, would create jobs like you wouldn't believe. The lands that would be returned back to the states would then be able to be used for state parks, if that's what they wanted to use them for. They would be open for resource development, like in mining, oil exploration, hunting, fishing, recreation, you name it. Whatever the state under the 10th Amendment wants to do with that land, the state would have the ability to do it. And then the last one, this one kind of one is near and dear to Alaskans as well. Whereas the Environmental Protection Act and the Environmental Protection Agency has had grievous impact on the state of Alaska in violation of the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Whereas the EPA has denied the state of Alaska its right of self-determination by evaluating permit requests for and at the state level as per the Alaska State Constitution to approve or deny the permits for Pebble Mine in violation of the 9th and 10th Amendment. Be it resolved that under Article 28, Countermand Amendment, the state of Alaska hereby nullifies and repeals the EPA agency and the Environmental Protection Act, including all rules and regulations thereof. This includes all executive orders that have had a similar impact on the air, land, and water within the state of Alaska. Be it further resolved that all with the repeal of rules and regulations of the EPA, that the state of Alaska shall, through the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation and the Alaska Department of Natural Resources, enforce all air, land, and water uses. Be it further resolved that the other states take up this resolution to regain all lands that have been taken by the federal government as per the above and any other acts or executive orders that have negatively impacted their lands and use of those lands for their people and states' economic benefit. That's the power of the Countermand Amendment, people.
Now listen.
All it takes is 30 states to do that.
What Mike was saying, folks, is what he was reading are examples of how a particular state or an individual state can countermand and rescind when the 30th state agrees on a particular law or ruling, how they can do it and what type of language might be involved. Now, we have a National Strategy Committee that is already forming. It is composed of legislators. There are many legislators already part of it, and also citizens. And the purpose of the committee is to identify specific laws and rulings or court decisions, even executive orders, that the states feel are burdensome to them. And when 60% of the states make that same determination, their countermands become a rescission. That law or ruling is then rescinded. Now, the states will actually learn how to use this tool called the Countermand Amendment. This is something so unique. In essence, it doesn't put the federal government out of business. It doesn't say, federal government, you have no legitimate role anymore. It says that federal government, if there is a specific law that you are enforcing on us that we find to be burdensome, we can rescind it when 30 states make that countermand. This is a powerful, powerful tool. And Mike had just given us some examples of what these kinds of countermand resolutions might be.
And Charles, one of the things that really kind of got me thinking about this is Representative Brody's comment the other day on our previous show. I think it was Friday, when he made it really hit home. I think it hit home to all of us. That when he said that, he's at the grocery store and he has a constituent coming up to him and says, Representative Brody, we got a real problem with this Obamacare. Can you help us? Or Representative Brody, we're having real problems. Charles, you're typing.
The reason I'm doing that, Mike, is because we've got a caller and I want to get to the caller.
Oh, okay.
We'll get back in a moment.
When he said, and then he turned around and looked at him and says, "I'm sorry, folks, those are all federal laws. I can't do anything about it." And then you take the Countermand Amendment, and he got it because he turned right around and said, "But if I had this Countermand Amendment, I could turn to that person and say, yes, we can take that on. Yes, what do you want? What do you want repealed?" and we will work on a resolution to the state of North Carolina, and we will work to get 29 other states to do the same, and we will work to repeal Obamacare. We will work to repeal the 68 Gun Control Act, etc. He was right on the mark.
Yeah, and I remember that show, and I agree with what he said, and I liked it, and I like what you just said. But right now we have a caller. Kelly, who was the caller?
Caller, are you there? Well, maybe they just want to listen.
I don't know.
Caller?
Yes. Are you there?
Yeah, I just called on to listen.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good.
That's why I put my phone on mute and stuff like that. I didn't want anybody hearing any background noise. I just calling to listen to what y'all saying. I try to hear y'all as much as I can. I'm Jerome.
Okay. You stay where you're at. You're fine. Just keep your phone on mute rather. And if you did want to say something, let us know.
I was calling to say, hey, I always like listening to what everybody has to say, because I try to keep up on this stuff as much as I can, you know.
Absolutely.
And and my mind is like, I see how our country has been destroyed, you know. I always talk about stuff on with all my friends, you know, where I go, they look like I'm nuts. So, you know, I just like try to keep all this stuff coming, you know, listen to what y'all have to say, so I can better help my own community the best way I can, you know.
Absolutely. And the fact is that many of us are concerned, just like you are, and we realize that we're in trouble. But believe it or not, we have a solution for about maybe 90% of the problems that we have, which is the Countermand Amendment. And it is an incredible concept and strategy. So you keep listening, making comments, asking questions, and we're trying to make sure that our audience understands what we're doing and why we are winning in the states. I understand.
I respect it and love it.
Thank you. I recently made a trip to Louisiana. I was a speaker at the Louisiana Senatorial Balance of Power Commission. And I was there to explain how the Countermand Amendment will help Louisiana. And I was really impressed with how interested they were with what we are doing. And right now we have probably 15 states that have sponsors, and we are looking to reach 34 and hopefully 34 applications also. So we've got a long way to go, but we've come a long way, and we've done it in a very short period of time. And we are anticipating that this thing could be ratified, this amendment, for the U.S. Constitution by 2016. If that be the case, then in 2016, the states could start countermanding the laws and regulations that are burdensome to them. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me give you a list, those in the audience.
Remember this, Charles. I'm on your Facebook, Jerome Wexler.
Thank you, John. Send me an invite so I can keep you on my friends group.
Okay, because I remember I'm on your friends list and stuff like that, and you have sent me lots of invites. Always try to come as much as I can, you know. Always try to make sure that I have time, you know. Sometimes you have one guy on the line, is me. I pre-tell you, yeah, I'm the one. Sometimes I'm just getting there from doing something I had to do earlier during the day, you know. And, you know, I'm just trying to catch up. But, yeah, I understand.
What state are you from, John? What state are you from?
Well, I'm a delegate. I have like a Convention USA delegate in the state of Maryland. That's where I was born. That's where my voting is. I live in Virginia right now.
Okay.
In the county, yes. So it's like I haven't changed my voting yet. I did vote this last election, and yeah, I did vote for all the Republican people that I was able to vote for. You know.
Yes, I remember your name, John. I've seen your posts, and I remember some of your comments back to me. So I have some feeling for where you're at with and that's good. Yeah. Well, let me just give the audience and yourself some very specific applications of how the counterman can help the state legislatures and their citizens. Environmental protection rulings, Bureau of Land Management rulings. Remember the Bundy Ranch in
yeah, that's Bundy Ranch, yeah.
Well, had we countermanded the law that BLM had used, it would have been rescinded, and that would have never happened. Bundy's Ranch would never have been encroached on that way by the federal government. How about the Department of Interior? There are some issues up in Alaska dealing with some road building that are in jeopardy of being completed because the Department of Interior are making agency rulings to prohibit Alaska from completing them. Congressional statutes. Many congressional statutes that are burdensome to the states can be countermanded and repealed. Supreme Court decisions, they can be countermanded and repealed if they're burdensome to the states. Remember now, we need 30 states, so that's a pretty good margin that you have to get before that particular law or ruling is rescinded. But once the 30 is reached, the Supreme Court has to make an adjustment, or Congress, or even the executive. Other applications have to do with a variety of amendment issues, First and Second Amendment, enumerated rights in the Ninth and 10th Amendment, unenumerated rights, I should say, and other enumerated rights in the Constitution, all of which the Countermand Amendment can address, protecting us in ways that we've never imagined. Now, audience, I want to remind those of you in the audience to realize something else. Not only is the Countermand Amendment capable of addressing, and John, mute your phone now, if you would, please. Not only is the Countermand Amendment able to address almost any ruling that is not that is burdensome to the states, but you also need to have an enforcement provision. We know that presently there are immigration laws, but many times the Department of Justice will not enforce them. And so as a result, the immigration officials are restricted from doing what is needed in order to protect our borders and our population from what? From an invasion from the South, from diseases that come in from the South. It's to protect us from terrorists from the South, enemies from the South, and they won't enforce many of those laws. So what we have in the Countermand Amendment is something that makes everything more efficient for the states, and that is this: if the federal government will not prosecute an intentional violator of the provisions of the amendment, then after 90 days, the states can, under state laws. And so, in essence, through extradition and through class actions, the states can actually put together a lawsuit that will literally say to the one creating the infraction, I don't care if it's even the President of the United States, if he is deliberately depriving the citizens of using their Countermand Amendment rights, he can be charged, you see, and he can be arrested under that. Now, it's true that that would be a difficult situation, but that's the kind of power that the states can have with this amendment. Now, before we get to the top of the hour, I want to ask the audience for this question. Who created the federal government? Was it the federal government that created the federal government? And then the second question is, who created the states? Did the federal government create the states? Did the federal government one day say, hey, we're going to make nation states out there, and we got 13 colonies now, and we're going to put together an Articles of Confederation, and they're going to form a nation of states? No. What happened was the nation states, that is, the republics that were already in existence, created the federal government. They created the federal government for the purpose of providing a certain amount of protection and fluidity in the commerce area, and also in interstate arrangements between the states on other issues as well. And they created a way for the states to manage themselves, for the purpose of creating a way for the states to manage themselves. Now, when that Constitution was finally written and then ratified, they included in there the sovereign authority that the states had before the Constitution was written, that gave them the authority, the sovereign authority, to create the Constitution, and they put that sovereign authority in Article 5. Article 5 then became the vehicle for future generations of legislatures to address egregious wrongs suffered by the people and the states that the federal government refuses to remedy, and so as a result they can be remedied by the state through the Article 5 sovereignty, and in our case through the Countermand Amendment under Article 5. It's as simple as that. So why in the world would we ever think that the state legislatures have to first get the permission of Congress before they can amend the Constitution? The whole purpose of Article 5 was for the states to be able to modify the conduct of the federal government. And that is very, very critical to understand. In addition, yes.
I was remembering something about nullify. Sorry to interrupt you, man. My apologies, man.
Okay. Well, go ahead and mute your phone, John, so that we can, because we're getting a little background noise there. But then when you want to...
I'll put it on mute.
Yes, please. So to think that the federal government needs to ask Congress or the courts or anybody for permission to amend the Constitution is nuts. The fact is, once the federal government amends the states amend the Constitution with ratification, then the courts are subject to that amendment. Congress is subject to that amendment. The executive is subject to it, and all of the agencies that we have. Everybody is subject to the Constitution. If we lose this Constitution and this thinking, we will have nothing to protect our civil rights. We will be vulnerable to any idiot out there that wants to redefine what inalienable rights are. We have to stop that. And we have to do it in a way that will allow us to restore our constitutional republic. Now, we are coming up on a break. Before we do so, I want to make this announcement. I would like you folks to keep in mind that we have other shows on CPRWorldwideMedia.com. One of them is the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Show with V. Wright and Jose Estevez. It's a powerful, penetrating show that focuses on bringing to you the news that the media won't talk about, with hard-hitting facts and events that will help you to see who we really are as Americans, where we came from, and where we are going. They are constitutionalists who work tirelessly to preserve our constitutional heritage, states' rights, and personal freedoms. They have a show from 7 till 9, Monday through Thursday. It would be worth your listening because they have some very, very powerful stuff that they are presenting. And the other show that I would recommend is the Right Side Patriot Show with Craig Andreessen and Diane Sori. They are investigative journalists. They are doing some incredible things, even on an international basis, with investigative work dealing with matters that are not publicly known relating to Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Middle East scenario relating to Jordan. There's a whole host of areas where they are getting information that you don't get on the media, and they're bringing it to your attention. Go to that show. That's called the Right Side Patriot Show at 4 o'clock, and then I believe they have 2 other live shows during the week as well. So feel free to go there. Go to the website, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, and get the schedule for Right Side Patriots. Now, we're going to go to break here in a few seconds. I want you to know that we have a special guest coming up, Mr. John Bering from Louisiana. He is presently running for, or intends to be running for, state representative down there in Louisiana. I'm looking forward to talking with him, and he'll be on as soon as we get past our break. So we're going to go to break now and listen for station identification, as well as listening to our sponsors. So please stay with us, and we will be right back.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
You know what happens when we take away the late fees and penalty rate? No one misses them. The City Simplicity Card is the only card that never has late fees, a penalty rate, or an annual fee. Ever. Go to city.com/simplicity to apply.
It's not about how many miles you can get out of the C-Max Hybrid. It's about how much life you can fit into it. The Ford C-Max Hybrid, with an EPA estimated range of 540 miles on a tank of gas, and all the room you need to enjoy the trip. Go stretch out. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
It's time. These guys are morons!
I like her a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13. Now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here. We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
The embers glowed softly, and in their dim light I gazed round the room, and I cherished the sight. My wife was asleep, her head on my chest, my daughter beside me, angelic in rest. Outside the snow fell, a blanket of white, transforming the yard to a winter delight. The sparkling lights in the tree, I believe, completed the magic that was Christmas Eve. My eyelids were heavy, my breathing was deep, secured and surrounded by love. I would sleep in perfect contentment, or so it would seem. So I slumbered. Perhaps I started to dream. The sound wasn't loud and it wasn't too near, but I opened my eye when it tickled my ear. Perhaps just a cough, I didn't quite know. Then the sound of footsteps outside in the snow. My soul gave a tremble, I struggled to hear, and I crept to the door just to see who was near. Standing out in the cold and the dark of the night, a lone figure stood, his face weary and tight. A soldier, I puzzled, some 20 years old, perhaps a Marine. Huddled here in the cold, alone in the dark, he looked up and smiled, standing watch over me, my wife, and my child. "What are you doing?" I asked without fear. "Come in at this moment, it's freezing out here. Put down your pack, brush the snow from your sleeve. You should be at home on a cold Christmas Eve."
This dream he
For barely a moment I saw his eyes shift away from the cold and the snow blown in drifts to the window that danced with a warm fire's light. Then he sighed and he said, "It's really all right. I'm out here by choice. I'm here every night. It's my duty to stand at the front of the line that separates you from the darkest of times. No one had to ask or beg or implore me. I'm proud to stand here, like my fathers before me. My Gramps died at Pearl on a day in December." Then he sighed. "That's a Christmas Gram always remembers. My dad stood watch in the jungles of Nam, and now it's my turn, so here I am. I've not seen my own son in more than a while, but my wife sends me pictures. He's sure got her smile." Then he bent and he carefully pulled from his bag the red, white, and blue, an American flag. "I can live through the cold and the being alone, away from my family, my house, and my home. I can stand at my post through the rain and the sleet. I can sleep in a foxhole with little to eat. I can carry the weight of killing another or lay down my life with my sisters and brothers who stand at the front against any and all to ensure for all time that this flag will not fall. So go back inside," he said. "Harbor no fright. Your family is waiting, and I'll be all right." "But isn't there something I can do at the least? Give you money," I asked, "or prepare you a feast? It seems all too little for all that you've done, for being away from your wife and your son." Then his eye welled a tear that held no regret. "Just tell us you love us and never forget to fight for our rights back home while we're gone, to stand your own watch no matter how long. For when we come home, either standing or dead, to know you remember we fought and we bled is payment enough. And with that we will trust that we mattered to you as you mattered to us." From all of us at CPR Worldwide Media, to all who serve and have served, thank you. We will not forget, and Merry Christmas.
Welcome back, folks, to the State Legislators Roundtable. I am Charles Kacprowicz, the Executive Director for Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. On this roundtable, we have discussions with state legislators and community leaders that center around critical issues in the states as they relate to federal encroachment on states' rights, and also how the nonpartisan Countermand Amendment can remedy many of them safely and quickly. And it's not a gotcha forum. We're not here to push our guests into a corner. We encourage serious discussions of the issues with our guests and with those in the audience. If you did want to call in and talk to our guest, who is John Bering, and I'll give you a little information on him in a moment. The fact is, you can call in on 956-217-0031. You can also go to you can also send the link cprworldwidemedia.com/live-radio to your friends and relatives, letting them know that this program is going forward at this time. Now, my guest right now is Mr. John Bering. He is a candidate for the House of Representatives. And here's a statement that he makes that you will find very, very inviting, I am certain. As a middle-class Christian family, we deal every day with the issues that affect our way of life. The cost of food, fuel, medical, and rising taxes assault our wallet every day. The burdens of our military, law enforcement, and fire departments diminish our protection. The education of our children is stymied by a system that is near the bottom of the national ratings. When our children graduate, they leave to find better jobs elsewhere. Christian values and the traditional family are attacked in the media. The unrelenting overregulation and de facto moratoriums by the federal government on our state economy makes us less self-sufficient and more dependent on federal handouts just to get by. As we struggle to balance our checkbook, the politicians struggle to increase revenue but not reduce spending. Mr. Bering is trying very hard to address these issues, and he's doing it through his knowledge and career and also through public service. So, John, I want to invite you to speak freely now. You have the floor, and I thank you for being our guest tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Charles, and thank you for everybody for being here tonight. As he gave the introduction, my name is John Bering. I'm running for Let me try that again. I'm running for state representative for Louisiana. And as Mr. Charles said, I'm just a regular middle-class guy. I'm retired Army. I have a real job. Right now, we're trying to get our bank account set up. It's I think we got like $130 so far for our campaign, mostly from colleagues at work. I'm a helicopter pilot. I fly people out to the oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. Just a little side note, we're kind of jumping through hoops right now. Unfortunately, as probably most of you all are, we're in the middle of the Christmas season. I have my mother up from Florida for the holiday, and before I can do anything with my campaign, we were planning on starting it in January. But a couple weeks ago, while I was at work, found out that the current state representative, who I ran against last time, has decided to resign as of 31 December. There will be a special election in February, and not 12 hours after she announced her resignation, a young gentleman from here, he's actually a celebrity, he's been on TV, announced that he was running for that special election. He had over 60 grand all ready to run. And even my campaign manager and most of the people I talked to said, we already know who the Republicans are picking. I am a Republican. One thing that does not make them very happy is, and I told the chairman of the state Republican Party, I said, I just want you to know I was born a conservative. I wasn't a Republican until I got a voter ID card. So everything I do is conservative first, and that did not ingratiate me too well to them. But I look at it this way. I am a conservative. I didn't spend an entire career in the military defending the citizens of this country against all enemies foreign to watch enemies domestic flush it down the toilet. So, yes. As my brother said, put on the suit and you still got to fight for the people. I believe in the oath of office that we took. And being a Christian, a lot of people don't understand about the oath of office. And this goes for anybody who's taken an oath of office. If people understand an oath in the olden days, and it still holds true today, say back in the old days of the knights and kings, a knight took an oath to a king. The only way that knight was ever released from that oath was if, one, the king released him from that oath, or the knight or the king died. That's how oaths still work to this day. That's why the oath of office, especially for our military, and that's an issue that I have with the Air Force Academy where it's optional. That last line, when you say, "So help me God," your oath is now to God, not to the Constitution, not to the people. And that way they wrote that oath makes sure that anybody who's taking that oath is bound by that oath. And political change, political climate, social ideals, no matter how they change, you cannot break your oath because you made it to a higher power than anybody. And until that higher power comes down here and releases you from it, you're bound by your oath to defend exactly what you said in your oath. No matter what anybody else says, you are not released from it. So now I believe I got to put a suit on and continue my fight. I thought I was going to retire and go fishing, but looks like that's not going to happen. And if anybody wants to ask me a question, I'll answer it.
I know that problem quite well about not retiring. Well, that's quite a statement you've made, and I agree with you, especially with your oath keeping to the Lord. I think that that's a wonderful thing for any politician or would-be politician to claim and to apply to himself. That's excellent. Now, what district are you running? What district are you running in down there?
It's District 49. It's very southern Louisiana, right along the Gulf of Mexico. If you're anywhere familiar with Louisiana, it would be mainly Iberia and Vermilion parishes, minus the cities of New Iberia and the town of Abbeville. It's Jeanneret, Lydia, Delcambre, Erath, Pecan Island, Perry, very, very small towns. It's mostly rural. It's cane fields, shrimpers and fishers, farmers, ranchers. We have a lot of cattle down here, so it's predominantly rural, small town area. But it's right along. If you look at a map, it's dead center in Louisiana, right at the bottom of it, right at the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay. Well, I wanted the audience down there in Louisiana to hear that, so they know where you're from. Now, I want you to know we do have a history of having people on as candidates who became office holder. At least one is the governor of Alaska. Is that not right, Mike? Bill Walker?
Yep, he's the governor.
And he was our guest on this show, John, not too long ago before he got elected. And so it might be a harbinger of some good things that can come by being on this show. So at any rate, I am delighted that you're here. As far as the audience is concerned, I just want to say this. I've known John for probably a little less than a year now. I followed him with many of his comments and posts in communications that I have on the internet, especially through Facebook, and I found him to be an honorable man. And I knew that he, having an interest in serving the people in his state, that he would be a guest that we should have on the program. So I welcome him again to the program. Now, when I was in go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. A little caveat on that, the oath thing. My family, and I admit, I'm a Christian. Probably most of my family is much better Christians than I am. My mother's sitting 4 feet from me, so she's close enough to slap me. My whole family's here. My whole family's here. And in my family, you can be pretty much forgiven for about, just about anything. But breaking the oath with God, that's a no-go. And if I were to break that oath, before the constituents could ever tar and feather me, my family would probably beat me. So,
well, I can tell you right now, I like your mother, and I think maybe we should have her run for office. I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay, now when I was in Louisiana last week, I had I had the opportunity of meeting many of the legislators, both in the Senate and in the House. And I was taken for a tour by Senator Crow, both of the House chambers and also the Senate chambers. I had learned something about your history, even the assassination of Huey Long back in, I believe it was in the 30s, and how the whole, the state as itself was moving forward. But I tell you, I was impressed with the I want to say Christian character, because I saw much of that. I didn't see everybody, I didn't talk to everybody, but there was a kind of respect that everybody that I did talk to for my Christian heritage. There wasn't anyone down there that thought that I was an idiot or a dummy because I was a Christian. And they rather respected me for it. And I was impressed with that. We even had prayer with some of the people in the legislature. And they just opened up real fast to say, look, we want that prayer. So you're in a good state, and you're in a state, now I'm not saying all the legislators fall into that category, but the fact is you're in a state where your Christian heritage and your Christian beliefs could and should be, and I believe will be honored. And I wanted to comfort you with those thoughts.
I agree with you. And now I'm not originally from Louisiana. I was born and raised in Florida. When I retired from the Army, I'd already gotten a job through one of the companies here flying. I'm a pilot. My first half of my career in the Army, I was a cavalry scout riding around in armored personnel carriers. The second half, I applied and got accepted and became a Huey pilot. I retired out of Hueys. I didn't fly into really advanced stuff. So I got the job down here and moved here. And everybody asked me, why did you move to southern Louisiana, in the middle of the bayou? If anybody from the rest of the country is unfamiliar with the area that I live in, those of you who have seen the show Swamp People, I live right in the middle of where they film all that. So we live right by that Atchafalaya and those big lakes and stuff. That we're right in the middle of where all that filming is done. So that'll give you an idea of the countryside and the scenery and the type of people that are down here. And as you can tell, no, we don't talk like that. But very, very Christian state. Louisiana is not one who flaunts a lot of stuff. You'll see, and one of the states I admire more than any other that stands up to the federal government is Texas. I absolutely adore Texas. But Texas, when they pass a law, they'll say, this is what we've done, and then, of course, that gets the ire of the federal government. Louisiana does the same thing. They just don't tell anybody they do it. Louisiana is a very pro-Christian state, and it's very, very gun-friendly. I'm a life member of the NRA. I'm a member of the Gun Rights of America, National Gun Rights of America. I'm a life member of the VFW. I'm a life member of the Disabled American Veterans. I ride a Harley. I ride with the Patriot Guard riders. So I like that sort of thing. That's paying back my brothers. And unfortunately, I follow the Patriot Guard riders on my Facebook, and it kind of breaks your heart that at least once a week, there's some veteran who's passed away and we're asked to go ride. And it breaks your heart to see all these brothers and sisters of mine passing away like this. And it's a very humbling honor to go do that. My family are very patriotic. My wife was born and raised here in Louisiana. My daughter was born in Germany. My mom lives in Florida. I have a very close friend that I call my brother. He lives up in Michigan, wants to come back to Florida as soon as he can. But that's pretty much all that's left of my family. My wife's parents still live here in Louisiana. So we're a rather small family, very patriotic. My father was a big-time patriot. Very strict man. You may believe, my father was the only person I've ever known, and no offense to all the ministers out there, but my father could talk when they run a trucker out of a truck stop with his language, but he was still a really good man, but he could recite every single word of the Bible. I never met anybody who knew every word of the Bible. My father could, you just open it anywhere and say, give him the chapter and verse number, and my father could recite it, and you sit there just amazed that he could do that.
Let me interject a few thoughts here, and I'm going to be speaking primarily to the audience, but also to you.
Okay.
It is important to understand what this Countermand Amendment that we are advancing is about. We've heard a lot of discussion over the last decades about nullification. The idea that individual states would take a stand in defiance of some federal law or regulation that is burdensome to them and they don't want it. Well, it happened in Nevada recently, where 88% of its land is controlled by the federal government, and that was with the Bundy Ranch situation. But what happened was it was a citizen against the federal government, which is a form of states' rights, but at the same time, it was an act of defiance. But even though BLM backed off, the fact remains that the law is still on the books. And so they can come back in and enforce this law another time, demanding that $2 million in taxes that they're claiming Bundy owes the government. Now, the reason I said it that way is because with the Countermand Amendment, the states can finally identify and define their unenumerated rights in the 10th Amendment and their citizens' rights in the 9th Amendment. Now, understand what I just said. The states can identify and define what their unenumerated rights are safely, peacefully, without any prospect that the federal government will come in and reapply that law or ruling again in the future, because the law is rescinded. Now, the government does have the option to either rewrite the law in a way that's more amenable to the states, which means that they're considering the impact that they're going to have on the states before they make the law or the ruling, but also they can abandon it. So if they abandon it, it is just permanently done away with. But any new law or any rescinded law, the government, if they're going to write it, they're going to have to do it knowing that it has to be amenable to the states, and they have to be seeing value in it so that the states don't find themselves, the federal government doesn't find itself forcing something down the throats of the states that the states are going to rescind. This is a balance of power between the federal government and the states, and what it's going to do, it's going to create a functional government so we can preserve our constitutional republic while at the same time allowing the federal government to perform its legal duties. It has a legitimate role. So we're not trying to put the federal government out of business. We just don't want them to steal any more of our rights in the states and among our citizens. John, you're free to share anything you want there.
Well, I've listened to you talk about this before, and I agree 100%. We are states, and we are sovereign, and we have the right to make our own decisions. And one of the things that really aggravates me is when the federal government says, if you don't play our game, then we're going to withhold funds from you. Now, my problem with that is you've taken the citizens of my state's money in what you refer to as taxes, and then you're going to withhold it from those people that you took it from, or you, let's say it politely, you received it from. If the state is going to pay the people in that state's going to pay the taxes, then they will receive that money back. That's part of that. Many people don't realize that the federal government does not have any money. It's what they get from us. And as citizens of our state, we have, I guess, you could put it as self-determination. We want the federal government to do its job, but it has no business overreaching its job. And what is it the original Constitution said? To defend the shores and engage in international commerce, and let us run our states. If we agree with something, then we should be part of that. If we don't agree, we cannot be penalized for not agreeing with something the federal government decides if it does not harm another state or the country at large. And the federal government, to me, has a large tendency, and I'm sure all of our guests out there will agree with this, has a huge tendency to overstep its bounds. We don't want to stop the federal government from doing its job. It needs to. That's what it's there for. The states created the federal government, not the other way around. We have a federal government to run us as a country, but not to interfere in the daily running of each state. And basically, if you're not going to play the game our way, then we're going to withhold funds from you. Wait a minute. It's our funds that you're using.
John, I'm going to have to... John, I'm going to have to go to break now, so hold tight. Yes, I agree with what you said. The fact is the federal government did not create the states, but vice versa. Now, folks, I want you to know that we have a special guest, John Bering. He'll be back in just a few minutes. But I would like you to know that the State Legislators Roundtable is broadcast on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock and on Fridays, 8 p.m., live at cprworldwidmedia.com/live-radio. You can learn more about the Countermand Amendment by going to countermands.us. You can also order an autographed copy of my new book, Countermand Amendment, The Missing Piece in the Article 5 Puzzle. We have to take a break now. We'll be back shortly for station identification and to hear from our CPR sponsors. So we'll look forward to your return, and stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. And I want to remind everyone to visit our website at www.countermands.us. Join us. There's always some way that you can help. If you want to get in there and resist this tyranny, go to www.countermands.us and join citizen initiatives, and we will get you started getting this important information to your local state legislators. We'll be right back with a quick station identification break. Stay tuned.
This is a station identification moment. You're listening to CPR Worldwide Media, a division of CPR Media Network, coming to you live right across the planet.
My name is Christopher Perkins, Captain, United States Marine Corps. I spent 9 years in the Marines and led a team in Al Ramadi, Iraq that risked its lives daily. Today, I'm a managing director at Citi, where I oversee a global team that provides safeguards for the $700 trillion derivatives industry.
Veterans, many of them have the right skills to be great bankers. And when they come in, they know how to make decisions, they know how to take risks, they know how to multitask. All of those things make them really great colleagues.
Just like we would go out onto the streets of Iraq, we would do an analysis of what risk we're taking and thinking about ways to mitigate it. It's no different here.
That makes them extremely valuable, and that's why we want them here helping our clients.
This industry requires our clients' trust. It requires a high degree of integrity. And so, just like the Marine Corps, your reputation is what it is, and your word is very important.
The design of the Ford Escape is clearly intended to grab your eye. Oh, and your foot. Huh, ain't that a kick? The Ford Escape with the foot-activated liftgate. Go open up something interesting. Go further.
Come on, Harry!
Dumb and Dumber 2 is the #1 movie in America.
Am I right? What?
Seriously, it's #1.
In time. These guys are morons!
I like it a lot.
Dumb and Dumber 2, rated PG-13, now playing.
However dark the night, however dim our hopes, the light is always there within you.
His family gave him hope.
You fight harder than those other guys, and you win.
His spirit gave him strength.
We're gonna die out here. We're not dying!
And in his darkest hour,
Who is the Olympic athlete?
his faith would not be broken.
Hello, Mother and Father. This will be the first time in 2 years that you'll have heard my voice. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Your loving son, Louis.
On Christmas Day, experience the unbelievable true story of one man's journey home.
You can take it. You can make it. Just gotta believe you can.
If I can take it, I can make it.
Unbroken, rated PG-13, Christmas Day.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you for joining us on the State Legislators Roundtable. I am Charles Kacprowicz, the Executive Director of Citizen Initiatives and the Countermand Amendment. Our guest tonight is Mr. John Bering, a candidate for the State House in Louisiana. We've had a delightful conversation. Having just returned from Louisiana last week, it's kind of a telling thing that he should be on tonight. Now, before we go any further, John, I want to ask Mike, did you want to jump in here and say something?
Yeah, John, I really appreciate your passion, and we just went through the election cycle up here, and the one thing that I think I learned a lot about was the value of shoe leather, and getting out there. You got that guy that's running against you. He may have a bunch of money, but I've seen people. The representative that I supported this year, she was outspent something like 3-1, and she won by 70 percentage points. So don't let that slow you down. Just get out there and gumshoe it, and get to those folks and let these people know who you are and where you stand, and let them know about the Countermand Amendment. This is an issue that is coming hard and fast. We got a solid sponsor there in Louisiana. It's going to be coming up, and this is going to be done. It's going to be brought forward. And we had a representative the other day from North Carolina. he brought up the point that, he is so frustrated when he gets approached by constituents that, we got a problem with Obamacare. We got a problem with this federal issue. We got this federal problem. We got, and he says, I can't do anything about it. I'm a state legislator. But with the Countermand Amendment, he can turn around and say, oh, what law do you want me to repeal? What regulation do you want us to repeal? What agency do you want us to repeal? And when people come forward, then you will, as a legislator, you will feel empowered by that. And from a campaign standpoint, people need to know this is a real good opportunity to let those people in those rural areas know that they're going to have a legislature and a legislator that will be willing and able to effectively fight back against the federal encroachment that's impacting all those constituents. And I think that's going to be that may be of a big help to you.
Let me perhaps, John, you might have your phone open, Mike. You should mute it when you're not talking. And the reason is I'm getting some feedback here that's going out over the air. So, I mean, right now we don't talk. But there you go. Now, well, that seemed like it was the answer. But at any rate, if you can mute it. Now, Sandy, did you want to say something? Hold on for a minute, Mike. Sandy, did you want to add something to this conversation?
Good evening, and it's nice to hear a prospective legislator that is interested in supporting the countermand. And as I've learned more about it, I have been very surprised at the lack of knowledge. And one of the things that all of us can do is to talk to their state legislators and tell them about the countermand and tell them about how much good they can do with it.
Right now we got another lady talking, saying this is a good thing.
John, you got to put your phone on mute if you can.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but we were getting some background noise there. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, I muted it down so that I was hoping you wouldn't get any.
Okay, Sandy, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your.
Like I can't afford those real fancy phones,
That's okay. You're doing well. That's okay. Go ahead, Sandy.
A perspective legislator with humor.
Well, no, that's just regular old working class humor there, ma'am.
But very seriously, the legislators don't understand the Constitution, and they really need to get to work on their understanding, and we all need to work on our legislators and help them understand.
Yes,
and I'm asking for our audience, email a copy of the Countermand, call your legislator and tell him about it and ask him to read it and listen to our show or come on our broadcast. If you have a legislator in your state that might be interested, you can go to the Countermand site and put in probably at the join us and tell them that you have a legislator that would like to come on. We'd love to have them on our show if they're interested. Okay.
Thank you, Sandy. Sandy happens to be our executive coordinator and Georgia State Director. Mike Coons, as we had introduced in the first hour, is our National Director and Alaska State Director. So I didn't introduce them as such a moment ago, but I wanted you to to know that. Now, John, I'm going to give you the mic here in just a quick moment, but I want to ask the audience, go to countermands.us. There are a number of things we would like you to do. First, there's a petition button. Fill out that online petition, that petition form, and then we will get it to your state legislators. It's directing them to adopt and approve the application on Congress for the Countermand Amendment Convention. It gives the Congress 60 days in which to convene the convention so they don't dilly-dally, all based on the idea that the legislatures are sovereign under Article 5 for making this application. When the 34th state makes their application, guess what? It's no longer an application. It's now a mandate. And it's an order on Congress to convene the convention. That's very, very critical. So get that document and get it into the hands of your legislators. Keep in mind, too, that the Congress, under Article 5, is not the controller of the Article 5 process. They are the facilitator. Their purpose is to do the will of the state legislatures. Very, very important that we have that understanding. Second, there's also a delegate resolution. It's a multi-page document. Copy it and give it to your legislators. Multiple copy. Give it to all of the legislators in your legislature. The fact remains that's the document that makes the convention safe, quick, maybe no more than 7 days. Can you imagine having a convention under Article 5 for proposing amendments completed in 7 days? Safe, quick, and successful? That's what we have here. So get this into their hands. We need to do this ASAP. We can't delay. And folks, you guys are instrumental in making this happen. If you want to make a donation, go to the donation button at the top right at countermands.us. Make a donation, and for every $100 you donate, we will send 4 books to state legislators so that they will have these documents and my new book, Countermands, the amendment, the missing piece in the Article 5 puzzle. Lastly, tell your friends about us. We need help in a number of different ways. We put on 3 new directors I guess it was last week. And we have many more that we can put on. So we are looking for people to say, hey, we want to make history with these people. We want to be part of citizen initiatives. And as a result, you can bring your support through letting us know the contact form. There's a join us button at the top of the page. Now, Mr. Bering, I want you to just share what's on your mind and just tell us what else you'd like us to think of.
Well, thank you, Mr. Charles, and thank you for everybody for listening. I'm sorry about my cheap phone that I have here with all the feedback. With the states' rights, I'm sure you all seen much of what's happened down in Louisiana, starting everything from Katrina to the oil drilling moratorium. If I know Mr. Charles follows me on my Facebook. If you go to Facebook and go to John Bering, I'm the guy in the suit. I recently shared a photo of a bunch of rigs sitting in the Gulf of Mexico, an aerial photo. And I didn't put on there what it was because I didn't want to stir up a lot of controversy. But it is a picture of what we call jack-up rigs, and they're all right next to each other. If you all find that picture on my Facebook page, this is an actual picture of drilling rigs not drilling. It's what we call stacked. They're parked because they don't have a job. Now, they're cutting back in the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of companies laying off. The moratorium actually hurt a lot of small mom-and-pop businesses because a lot of the food that's taken out to those platforms and those rigs come from small grocery stores. So there's a lot of third-party small businesses. When you talk about the big Exxons and the Mobiles, that's not the issue because those companies contract out to smaller companies, and they therefore contract out to even smaller companies. So it literally ends up affecting the small mom and pop business. Everything from the fisheries with the oil spill to this day, and everybody doesn't want to admit it, the oil business out here, the drilling, is one of the most ecologically safe businesses in the country. But we suffer under this federal quasi-moratorium where they want to cut all this back. and I always get a kick out of this because with the oil platforms out there, they sit for years. You know, they're pumping oil out. You have a drilling rig which goes out and actually drills the hole. Then they put a platform over it that stays, and it pumps the oil out, you know, through lines to the shore for years. But every one of these oil platforms become artificial reefs, and you have all kinds of fish and marine life around these oil platforms. And I always kind of think jokingly to myself, well, if we're such terrible polluters down here, how come all the fish are hanging around the platforms?
Yes,
that's one thing.
Not only that, John, but the earth is made to recycle. So as a result, even when you have an accident, and there will always be accidents. I mean, when the Empire State Building was erected back, I believe, in the 30s, there were 100 men who fell off that thing as they were erecting it. Did that mean that you're not, and they were all volunteering for the job, but the point is, does that mean that you don't make any more high-rise buildings in New York City because 100 people did get killed? You see, our thinking is wrong, but the fact is when our environment is impacted in a bad way, the environment, aside from our efforts to clean it up, the fact is the environment itself cleans itself up and emulsifying pollutants and a variety of other things that go on. But there's another reason why the Countermand Amendment can win, John. This is very, very important. We are for traditional energy. That includes oil, gas, coal, nuclear. We're for that. Why? Because those are the energy sources that will get us out of this economic doldrum that we've been in for the last 6-7 years. Or 6 years. But the fact remains that we have in America 38 energy producing states. 38, like Louisiana. And every one of them need to have a way in which to protect their industry. And we need only 38 states to ratify. Guess what? That means we will probably get this thing ratified just by the energy states. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and also, I agree 100% with that. And it also comes down to, local things too. You were talking about federal branches. My two parishes that I hope to eventually represent here, I know you all heard about the levees in New Orleans and so on. Well, where we live right along the Gulf Coast, and we have no levees. And it's always, well, the EPA has to do an environmental study and this and that and so on and so forth. Well, we haven't had, I think they had levees back in the early 1900s and hurricanes took them out. But since then, where we live, we have no levees and just can't get the federal government to go along with that. If y'all remember, after Katrina, there was another hurricane called Rita, and Rita essentially wiped out the southern end of Louisiana from New Orleans all the way over to Texas. Those people actually, when FEMA came down to help them, the people there said, we don't need your help, we'll recover ourselves. But feds never went down there to help them because they didn't scream. They were your typical good country kind of folks. Well, hey, we know how to rebuild our house. We're going to do it ourselves. And most of them did it that way. They got together as a community. They rebuilt their homes. That's really catastrophic. You can go on the internet and look at pictures of Cameron, Louisiana, after Hurricane Rita, and you'll see it literally looked like a bomb went through there. There was 2 buildings standing in the town of Cameron after Rita. The rest of them were literally erased.
Yes.
And these sort of things is the federal government interfering with how the heck do we get us a levee down here? That's one of my campaign issues. We still have to update our campaign website. It's still from my last run at state representative. They had some issues with it, and the site wouldn't come up. So we still do have to do a few corrections on it and updates. And it's the local things that you want taken care of. Why would anybody even stand in your way of protecting the people? So you go from everything from your industry to the protection of the people that I personally think the state is responsible for, not the federal government. The federal government's job is to assist, not to take over.
Yes.
We know what we need locally. Everybody on this conference call tonight knows what you need locally because that's where you live. The federal government doesn't know unless they're told, and most of the time they'll send somebody down. They may not get it right. We know what we need locally. Just assist us if we need it, but don't interfere and don't stop us from doing what we need to do. The example of one thing that just really aggravates me is the EPA closing down the last lead smelting plant in Missouri. You know, if the state of my understanding, and I may be incorrect, Mr. Charles, in this, but my understanding is if the state legislature in Missouri disagreed with that, they should have just told the EPA, sorry, we're not closing it down, it's in our state. And I know there's a lot of other regulations statewide and so on, but there comes a point where we have to stand up. Our state has to stand up. But in fairness to the state legislators not knowing, and that's where I appreciate what Mr. Charles is doing, is I'm just a regular guy, and I'm trying to do my part to help my state and my country. I just got lucky enough that a friend of mine, Mike Toops, connected me with Mr. Charles, and I got on this conference call and started learning a lot. And I suspect that most state legislatures like me, you know, they're just regular people. They want to help their state, but they've never been educated in this. So education of the state legislatures is paramount. Okay, you're in there now. Welcome aboard. And guess what? You don't know about what you can do and what you can't do, and you're busy concentrating a lot on your constituents, but you don't realize the absolute power that the state legislatures have in the actual running of the country, so to speak. At the state level, the separate states. And then, in my opinion, the federal government's job is just to assist the states with what they need.
Well,
John, I may be wrong in that, but that's the way I see it.
Well, states' rights, at another time we can get into the ramifications of states' rights versus federal responsibility in the federal Constitution. We are states' rights people. On the other hand, when we think about energy, the gas and oil industry, their average wage is about $83,000 a year. That's been over the last 6 years. Now, the EPA and the Department of Interior and executive orders, the Keystone Pipeline and things like that, all of them have literally cost Americans millions of jobs, or at least 1 million jobs anyway, at $83,000. The coal industry is about shut down. And all of the possible exploration of energy that could have gone on in domestic energy was stopped over the last 30, 40 years to where we are barely producing half of our energy ourselves. And with that, the people who support these laws and these rules are literally stealing from the American people and preventing them from having a gainful employment at rates like $83,000 a year. So we have to be very mindful of that, that this is an economic issue as well as an environmental issue. But there is a difference between environmentalism and conservationism, as my National Director, Mike Coons, has very adequately said. And we are conservationists, meaning that we want to preserve our society, our environment. We don't want to have it ruined. At the same time, we also don't want to not be able to use our resources because of an ideology called environmentalism. So it's a whole different ballgame when you get into that ideology. And that's part of what the Countermand Amendment will stop.
Hey, John?
Yes, sir.
Kind of going into what you were talking about, the stacking, and that came out of that disaster from BP, right?
Well, yes and no, sir. The way it works is basically they'll have areas along the coastline where anytime a rig is not working, now these are the smaller rigs. These aren't the giant ones you see on TV.
Right.
These are the middle-sized ones. And they'll park them. A company will leave them near the coast, and they'll have a skeleton crew on board to maintain it. And this also happens in regular downturns in the oil fields and in the oil economy. But there's a lot of them stacked. There's been a lot of them stacked or parked, and you can always tell because they're parked in groups. Right. And there's been a lot of those since the moratorium. Now, the moratorium supposedly lifted, but essentially what they've done is they've made it really, really, really difficult for the companies to get new leases now. So they're very restricted on what they can actually do. So to cut back, they got to save money, so they park them.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing that up, and we're running out of time, is that you got a moratorium down there because of one instance. We have up here in Alaska, up on the North Slope, on the what they call NPR, the National Petroleum Reserve, is where the federal government came up and drilled back in the 70s, and then they left that with oil on the ground, the tundra torn up, and they will not fix that. They will not come up here and fix that. But yet, what they will do is they will come up with a moratorium against BP because of the spill, but they won't fix what they have created, and yet they will turn around and say, we cannot drill up here in Alaska. We cannot go out to Anwar and drill and pull up billions upon billions upon billions of barrels of oil and really do some real major stuff here. So Alaska, Louisiana, Texas, we get it. And but we're getting ready to call this thing quits, so I'll leave it at that.
All right, Mike, I do have to.
Thank you, sir.
John, we're going to be closing in a minute. The fact is that we have the custom of closing with a short prayer. It's about a 2-minute prayer, and we'll ask you to join us in that as we close our program. And
well, of course.
The audience now is who I am directing my comments to. Folks, go to countermands.us. If you want to be part of history, constitutional history, join us. We are a movement that not only does this nation need, but we are making history. We're literally making it possible for the Constitution to be used the way it was intended. The Countermand Amendment does not change the Constitution. What it does, it gives the state legislatures a tool that will allow them to use the Constitution as it was supposed to. For an example, unenumerated rights in the 10th Amendment. They can define them with the Countermand Amendment, and then they can rescind bad laws. So and you don't touch the rest of the Constitution. So the point is that this is a tool the states will learn how to use, and you will be better for it. You will have your liberties and your freedoms protected and your states' rights, and we will be able to restore our constitutional republic. Now, I'm going to ask you to go to countermands.us, order some of my books, the Countermand Amendment, and we'll send it to you, or order by donation, and we'll be sending copies to the state legislatures for every $25 donated. Now let's look to the Lord just for a short moment here. Lord, we come in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ, and we thank you that we have this privilege. We're not embarrassed about being Christian people. We don't put other people down. If they have a religion and a belief system that they feel is better than ours, that's their prerogative. That's what our First Amendment was meant to do. It was Christian men who put that First Amendment together so that men would be respected for their opinions and beliefs. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that we should be shut up simply because they don't agree with us. We fight that. We do not want them to have that kind of domination on our First Amendment. So we are looking to you for strength. We're looking to you for wisdom. We're looking to you for protection, especially for our directors and their family members. We're looking to you for resources, for supporters, and whoever else is needed. And the schedule of calls that we're making on the legislatures this coming year, which is going to be a big year, we're looking for you for victory. Lord, I believe you want to return this nation to be a God-fearing people one more time, and we're doing what we can to make that happen, and we ask you to enable us to gain the victory so you'll get the glory. And we ask it and thank you for it in the name of our Savior and your Son, Jesus Christ.